Miss Shalay.
And I am Philemon from behind the camera.
And this is Allure from Below My Waist. And today we are bringing you all another cooking vlog. So, without further ado, as you probably have seen from the title, this is a holiday meal that we're going to be preparing. We're going to be making fried chicken, barbecue ribs, some greens with smoked turkey neck and onions, some candy yams, some mac and cheese, some sweet potato pie for dessert. Okay. So, it's going to take a while to make this extensive menu, and hopefully you guys learn something new. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is boil the potatoes and the turkey neck, because those take a very long time and we kind of want to get those out the way early. Alright, so I already started boiling some water, so I'm going to put in my sweet potatoes. Ooh, not my fingers. So I'm making pies and yams, and I have all of the potatoes in here, but the yams, the candy yams, don't need to be as soft, so I'm going to pull those out a little bit earlier than the sweet potatoes that I'm using for the pie. Then over here I have chicken stock that is warming up that I'm going to add our turkey necks into so that they can start boiling. Next, I'm going to wash my greens. I bought collard greens, but sometimes I get kale, mustard, turnip. I'll mix them, match them, whatever, but greens were pretty scarce in the store. I kind of waited till the last minute, so they just had collards left. So we're gonna use those for this recipe, and I'm gonna start by washing them in cold water with some vinegar and some salt. So some people like to cut their greens into smaller pieces. I just rip them because no one's gonna be able to tell if you cut or rip them once they're cooked. And ripping is way more faster in my opinion. Also, I don't really use a lot of the stalk just because it's a preference. Some people chop their stalk up and cook it. It is good for you, but I just like the leafy part of the green. Alright guys, so I just washed and ripped up all of my collards here in this bowl. And next I'm going to chop the onion that's going to go into my greens. So for my green recipe, I typically do use pork, so ham hock or something like that. But I'm gonna do a more healthier version for this recipe. I'm gonna use smoked turkey neck. In addition to the meat, I'm also adding onion for flavor, vinegar, hot sauce, and liquid smoke, and chicken stock. So I'm not chopping the onion up too small because it's gonna cook down. Next, I'm gonna move on to the ribs. Something that I think is very important in cooking, especially these large meals, is multitasking and timing. So knowing how long things take to cook. So for example, my fried chicken is going to be the last thing I make because I know that it's the quickest to make. Ribs are going to take hours, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on those sooner than later. The first step is to wash and dry my ribs. And these are pork ribs, they're baby back, St. Louis style baby back ribs. So these typically come with a membrane intact, so you want to remove the membrane so that your ribs are not tough. So what I typically do is kind of find a spot with my knife to begin lifting it, and then use my finger for the rest. This is actually, it's usually not this easy for me, but this one came off quite simple. Now I'm going to do the dry rub. So I've never actually made ribs in the oven alone. Usually we grill them, so this is gonna be a first for me. But I just bought some Sweet Heat barbecue sauce stubs, and I figured my dry rub should probably match. People make their own barbecue sauce and their own dry rubs. Because I'm making such a large meal, I don't really feel like it. If I was only making ribs, then maybe I would have done that. But today we're gonna kind of just take a shortcut and get some pre-made sauce and seasonings. So I'm gonna start by generously adding the dry rub to the bone side of the rib, and we do the same for the meat side of the rib. So the first step for the ribs is to get them soft. So it's a meat that has to be slowly cooked, so slow and low. So I'm going to, I should have already preheated the oven to 300 and let these kind of stay in there covered up for about 2.5 hours. And then we will see if they've softened up, kind of separated from the bone a bit. And then we'll add the barbecue sauce and let them cook for maybe another hour. And then broil for like 5 to 10 minutes to get that kind of burnt grill mark vibe happening. Alright, so I'm going to take 2 of these out early for our candied yams. Leave these in here and add some more liquid. Alright, so like I mentioned earlier, a big part of cooking large meals is multitasking. So pie crusts are thawing. You can make your own pie crust. I did it once. It's very time consuming and I haven't done it again. But store-bought frozen pie crust works fine for me. Again, to each its own. So the pie crust and the butter have been sitting out because the butter needs to be soft for our sweet potato pies. And the pie crust needs to be crispy for when we put in that wet batter. So right now what I'm doing is just adding some air holes so that when these go in the oven, they don't kind of poof up. Because what I'm going to do is put the crust in the oven by itself first to get it kind of crispy. I wish I had 2 ovens because I am going to have to time this out with the ribs because they are not all cooking at the same temperature. Pies cook at 350, my ribs are at 300, so I may have to turn my ribs up momentarily, which should be fine because again, they are covered. Alright, so now we're going to get started on the candied yams. So I pulled these potatoes, or sweet potatoes, out. So they're not mushy, they're just a little bit softer and the skin should be easier to remove. So some people will peel their yams raw. I find it to be a bit more difficult. I like to cook them a little bit so that the peeling is a lot easier. Obviously, the longer you cook them, the easier it'll be to peel. So these still are kind of, a bit raw, so still a little bit more difficult to peel, but it's way easier than if they were fully raw and haven't been parboiled. Very hot. We're going to chop up our yams and season them and put them in the pan. We're not going to bake them just yet, but we're just going to prep them so that when it is time to bake them, all I have to do is put them in the oven. trying to make sure that they're all the same thickness so that they cook evenly. Now we're going to make the sauce that's gonna go on the candied yams. So this is the candy part. So what I'm gonna use is a stick of butter. And yes, a lot of soul food recipes call for a lot of butter. That's why we don't eat this way all the time, just, you know, special occasions in moderation. So I'm gonna melt the butter down, and then I'm gonna add some brown sugar, white sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Just added the brown sugar to the butter. Add the white sugar. Just like all that sugar. Again, we're making candy, so lots of sugar. Now I'm gonna add some nutmeg, cinnamon, stir it. Just adding the milk to kind of loosen things up a bit. Cut the butter. Tastes good to me. Now we're gonna pour it over our yams. Those will be ready to bake in the oven shortly. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our mac and cheese. So the first thing I'm gonna do is boil the macaroni pasta in some chicken stock. You can boil it in salted water or water with like a bouillon cube or whatever you want to do. I just use chicken stock for a nice flavor. And I'm going to, I've actually never done this before, but it makes sense to me. I'm going to boil the noodles with this in there just so it's easier for when it's time for me to drain them. So hopefully that works. It may not actually. I'm looking at it because, okay, so I'm not gonna use this whole box because again it's just for 2.5 people tonight. And macaroni triples in size almost, so the way I measure my macaroni is the pan that I want to bake it in, I pour it in while it's raw. I just really need it to cover the bottom because there's gonna be, you know, cheese and milk and all my other ingredients, which is gonna take it up to where it needs to be, and we don't need too much mac and cheese. So I'm gonna go ahead and boil my chicken stock. So now we're going to cut up the cheeses for our mac and cheese while we wait for the chicken stock to boil. I bought 3 types of cheese. There were slim pickings at the grocery store because again I waited to the last minute. Mozzarella and provolone is already pre-shredded, and then I got extra sharp cheddar, well, yellow cheddar, and then extra sharp white cheddar. Cracker Barrel is my favorite brand to use, especially their extra sharp yellow cheddar, but they were all out, so Cabot I've had before. My mac and cheese gives a nice little flavor as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and chop the cheese. Well, grate. What is it called? Do you grate cheese?
Yeah, grate cheese.
Okay. I'm gonna grate the cheese.
Or you can cut the cheese.
Ha ha ha. Man, it's funny. I like my mac and cheese to be yellow, but they only had like one yellow cheese in the grocery store, so this may be a white mac and cheese. We'll see. So I'm gonna use the bigger side. All the cheese is cut up. I'm gonna mix the white cheddar and the yellow cheddar that I cut with the mozzarella and provolone into this bowl so that when it's time for me to add it to the macaroni, we have a bite of each type of cheese in every layer. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. All right. Probably should have did a dump.
Rookie.
Okay, so that's out. Mix it with this. Just gonna mix all the cheese up. Okay, give some to the little girl. It's good. Okay. So I just took the macaroni out and it's straining over there. Now I'm going to, so before I begin making this mac and cheese, disclaimer, everyone makes their mac and cheese different. Everyone has a preference. This is just how I make it. This is how we like it in the Atiaku household. So we're gonna start our mac and cheese with a roux, which is basically just a thickening agent that you can use for gravy, sauces, things like that. We're gonna do that for our mac and cheese. And we're gonna start by melting some butter. I don't really measure, but kind of just wanna fill the bottom of the pan with butter. So now that the butter is melted, I'm going to add some flour. A little bit, you don't need a lot. I'm not making a big batch of mac and cheese, so whisk that together. Get all of the lumps out. Smooth, like so. Kind of whisk that for about like a minute or so. Just to kind of cook out the flour flavor. I'm gonna go ahead and season the roux with a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, some paprika, some pepper, some seasoning salt, some milk, thicken up a bit. You want to bring it to a boil. You can see it's starting to thicken, starting to bubble up. It's a nice thick consistency. So just keep whisking and adding milk little by little. Also gonna add some sour cream. 2 dollops. Get a nice creamy texture. Also want to start adding some of our cheese mix to it. Get the cheese flavor in our sauce. More milk. Now you can add egg to your mixture. I don't add egg because I use a roux, so that's thick enough, but again, it depends on how you like your mac and cheese. This is the consistency you want. When you lift your whisk, there should be some give. That's your cheese. We're gonna add our macaroni back to the mixture. Nice base for our macaroni, a little bit of salt. Alright. So this is going to be a 2-layer mac and cheese. Pour a little bit into my pan. About half of it. Cheese. We're gonna add the rest. That should be enough cheese. And that's the mac and cheese. All right, so actually before we make our pies, I'm going to add our greens to our turkey necks that have been boiling this whole time. First, I'm just gonna season them with some salt and pepper, a little garlic powder, a little onion powder, almost forgot to add my onion. Alright, so we're gonna let these cook down for about an hour. And add a little vinegar, hot sauce, liquid smoke. Once an hour goes by, we'll do a taste test to see if we need to add anything else. But you should be good to go. Alright guys, so you all are in for a treat. I'm going to show you all how I make my sweet potato pie. I always bake at least 2 pies because I think it's a waste of ingredients to bake just 1 pie. And why I bake just 1 pie when you can have 2, right? So, first thing we're going to start with are our boiled sweet potatoes. I use 3 decent sized sweet potatoes. So I usually use my KitchenAid, but in order for me to demo for you guys, I want to use this counter, so I'm going to use a hand mixer. Both come out well. I've used both hand mixer and KitchenAid to make pies, and there's no difference. Also, you want to make sure your oven is preheated to 350. My oven is currently on 300 because, as you recall, the ribs are in the oven. However, I'm gonna just increase it when I'm ready to put my pies in. First step, you want to blend your potatoes by themselves to kind of get as many lumps out as possible. Next, I'm gonna add 2 sticks of butter. Yeah, so 1 stick per pie. And the butter should be softened. As you can probably tell from the steam, I did not let my yams cool. I don't really like to let them cool too much because I want them to melt the butter all the way. Mix. Mix. Got my little helper today. See, it's a nice smooth mixture. All right, so now I'm gonna add sugar. The thing about sugar is I do not measure the sugar because every sweet potato is made differently. So some sweet potatoes are naturally sweet, others are a little bit more bitter. So it just depends on the type of potato you picked up from the store. So the key is just to add a little bit at a time and taste as you go. Also gonna start adding some cinnamon and nutmeg for additional flavor. A little bit of milk. And do a quick taste test. We're getting there. Need some more sugar. Some more cinnamon. And some more nutmeg. So like everything else I've been making, this is to your liking. So if you like very sweet, you can add more sugar. If you like less sweet, less. Same with the cinnamon and nutmeg. Also gonna add some vanilla extract. A bit more milk. So in total for the milk, I did measure that. That was about 3/4 of a cup of milk. And I'm gonna use 2 eggs. So I do 1 egg per pie and 1 stick of butter per pie. I'm not adding the egg until the end because I want to continue to taste test, and I don't want to get salmonella poisoning. So now that the pie is sweetened to my liking, I'm gonna go ahead and add the 2 eggs and blend. We're gonna pour the batter into the pre-cooked crust. Shake the pie to get it leveled. Then I like to top it with a sprinkle of cinnamon and nutmeg. Just for decor. Alright, so now we're going to take the ribs out so that we can turn the oven up to 350 and put our pies in. And we're also going to put our mac and cheese and our candy yams in at the same time so that all of that stuff can cook for about an hour. I did cover up my mac and cheese because I don't want the cheese on top to get too burnt or too crispy too fast. So I will uncover that when it's time to brown my mac and cheese. So, just took the ribs out. It's 11:10. So the pies will be done at 12:10. Mac and cheese and yams hopefully are done before then because I'm getting hungry. So yeah, these are our ribs. Cooking for about 2 hours in the oven on 300. They are still quite hard, so they're gonna have to cook longer. What I may do is cut them so that they cook a little bit faster. So my ribs are taking a little bit longer than I thought, so we're gonna pivot a bit. So I cut them up into serving sizes. So I saved the juices from when they were baking, and I'm gonna add some beer to it. I'm going to add some vinegar, some liquid smoke, and some barbecue sauce. Mix that up and coat the ribs in it so that they stay moist and get some extra flavoring. The acid in the beer and the vinegar should help break down the meat a bit so that it becomes tender a bit faster. So I'm just gonna pour that over. Cover these up and put them back in the oven. So back in the oven these go. So we are now in hour 3, real time cooking. Moving on to my chicken, which is the last thing that I have to make today. So I've already washed, pat dried, and seasoned my chicken with salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and a little lemon pepper. I also seasoned my flour with the same seasonings. So I've already preheated my cast iron skillet, and there's some vegetable oil in there. I'm gonna fit all of this chicken in there because I'm not doing more than one batch because I'm tired. So shake, shake, shake. Okay, so try to put my drums down first because they take a bit longer to cook. So they'll go down first and they'll come out last. Grab them all in. Oh wow, so the grease was a little hot. Alright guys, so almost 4 hours later, we are done and ready to eat. So I'm going to show you guys what we have here, finished product. Some barbecue baby back ribs, some fried chicken wingettes, some candy yams, mac and cheese, collard greens, and sweet potato pies. So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and dig in. No need to do a taste test because I've been tasting all along and I know that it's delicious. Take my word for it. Hopefully you guys are able to try one or all of these recipes and let me know what you think. If you like what you saw today, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more recipes. Bye.